Hey guys, today we're embarking on a journey back in time, where the cold stone walls of history will echo with whispers of power, love, and tragedy. Have you ever wondered what transformed a young romantic king into a ruthless tyrant, one who beheaded two queens and tore a kingdom from the world's most powerful empire? Have you ever felt the relentless obsession for a male heir, potent enough to drive a man to the brink of madness? In this story, you won't just hear, you'll live the life of Henry VIII, England's greatest and most fearsome king. You'll step into the secret chambers where plots were woven. Feel the beat of his heart as he fell deeply in love, and tremble before his destructive fury when betrayed. From the iron resolve of Catherine of Aragon, the deadly charm of Anne Boleyn, to the silent tragedy of Jane Seymour and his other tumultuous marriages, each woman is a fateful chapter, a mirror reflecting the king's own internal struggle. So what are you waiting for? Turn off the lights, snuggle under your blanket, and let us transport you to the past, where the deepest secrets of the Tudor court will be revealed. If you enjoy this story, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below to let us know where you're listening from. The air hangs thick with anticipation, a hushed reverence clinging to the ancient stones of Greenwich Palace. Outside, the London mist whispers secrets, but within these hallowed walls, a new chapter of destiny is about to unfold. You feel the subtle tremor in the very foundations of England, a premonition of the seismic shifts to come. Deep in the royal chambers, a cry punctures the silence, sharp and insistent, the herald of a king. You are born, a healthy Prince Henry, on June 28, 1491. You are there, bathed in the immediate jubilant celebration, the joyous shouts echoing through candlelit halls, a beacon of hope for a fragile dynasty. Little do they know, this moment of unadulterated triumph holds the seeds of unparalleled obsession and heartbreak. The cradle, seemingly a simple vessel, is already a throne in miniature, awaiting its true calling. For years you live a childhood unburdened by the crushing weight of the crown, a freedom reserved only for you, the second son. Your elder brother, Arthur, stands as the quiet, dutiful heir, while you explode into life, a blazing comet in the Tudor sky. You are nimble and quick-witted, excelling in every pursuit. Your mind, a sponge for knowledge, devours Latin and theology, while your body, a vessel of boundless energy, conquers the jousting field and the tennis court. You are a blossoming rose in the royal garden, unaware of the thorns that will one day pierce your own flesh. You feel the wind whip past your face as you race across Surrey's green fields, a wide smile on your lips and bright mischief in your eyes. The scent of fresh grass, the bird song, and a boundless sense of freedom, these are the things you know, the things you love. The soft strum of your lute drifts from your private chambers, melodies composed by your own hand, a whisper of the artist's soul hidden within the prince. You feel the subtle vibration of each string, your clear voice harmonizing with the very air, a symphony of youth and yearning. You can picture your hands stained with ink from vigorous writing sessions, or your fingers calloused from gripping a sword in relentless practice, yet a radiant smile always lights up your face. Will a spirit so unfettered truly be ready for the golden cage of the throne? You watch your father, Henry VII, a reserved and frugal king, his eyes sometimes sweeping over you with a quiet apprehension, as if he already saw the future weight on those young shoulders. In contrast, your mother Elizabeth of York, the gentle queen, often caresses your brown hair, her eyes brimming with boundless love. You can feel the warmth of her hand, a rare tenderness in a court full of calculations. The scent of old paper, the rich smell of ink, and the profound stillness of the royal library fill the air. You sit for hours, absorbed in books, your eyes lighting up as you uncover new knowledge of theology, philosophy, and languages. Your fingers trace the rough texture of ancient parchment, and your voice murmurs Latin phrases like a devoted monk in his studies. Then the world shifts on its axis. A chilling wind sweeps through the land, carrying news that no one dared utter. The hushed whispers grow into an unbearable roar. Arthur, Prince of Wales, is dead. The suddenness of it is a cruel jest played by fate, a bolt of lightning striking from a clear sky. You feel the profound shock ripple through the court, a collective gasp of disbelief. Your elder brother, the heir, gone. And in that instant, every eye, every expectation, every crushing weight of the Tudor legacy falls squarely upon you. Your carefree days, once an open field, now become a narrow corridor leading directly to the throne. You feel the crushing weight of grief and the dawning terror within you as news of your brother's demise sinks in. It isn't just the loss of a family member, it's the shattering of a preordained future, a burden previously unimaginable now crashing down. The stifled sobs of your mother, the grim silence of your father, and a sudden cavernous emptiness in the familiar corridors of the palace hang heavy in the air. A cold sensation creeps into every fiber of your being, a void no words can possibly describe. You remember shared lessons with Arthur, his steady focus contrasting with your own yearning for the hunt. It was an opposition that once seemed eternal, now dissolved like morning mist. Despite not bearing Arthur's responsibilities, you looked up to your elder brother with a quiet respect, a sturdy shoulder to lean on.
In that moment, you feel the immense glacial burden descend upon your own shoulders. Your brother's ghost, a silent sentinel, looms large. You are no longer just the talented prince, you are suddenly the future of England, the linchpin of a dynasty. The crown, once a distant, glittering prize, now feels like a leaden weight settling on your brow. Can you bear it? Can you produce the sons needed to secure this fragile line? This unexpected destiny, a cloak woven from the threads of grief and ambition, wraps around you, heavy and inescapable. You feel the silent questions of every noble, every commoner, pressing down on your young shoulders. The jousting lance feels suddenly heavier. The lute strings sing a different, more somber tune. Your chest tightens with a suffocating pressure. Why me? Why not Arthur? Can I truly shoulder this empire? Am I worthy of this crown? These rhetorical questions echo in your mind, unanswered, a constant ebb and flow of worry, like waves ceaselessly crashing against the shore. The faint glow of a lamp still burns late into the night in your room as you lie awake, staring transfixed at the dancing flame as if trying to find answers to this cruel fate. A terrifying silence like the echo of a curse already uttered. The stage is set for a pivotal union. You witness your political marriage to Catherine of Aragon, the widowed wife of your deceased brother. This union is a calculated gamble, a desperate political maneuver forged in the shadow of grief and ambition. It is a pact sealed not just with rings, but with the weighty expectations of two great nations. You observe the procession, the solemn vows, and the uneasy truce between duty and burgeoning affection. The scent of incense, the echoing chants in Westminster Abbey fill the air, yet you can feel an underlying tension. Catherine, a symbol of the Spanish alliance, stands there, a young widow bearing the immense burden of faith and honor. She is a woman of deep piety and regal bearing, stepping into a land where her past, though cleared by papal dispensation, will forever be a whisper in the halls. As the years unfold, you perceive Catherine's initial hopes, her quiet determination to make this unlikely marriage a success, to embrace her new homeland. Her world, once tethered to the Spanish sun, now finds itself charting a course through the unpredictable fogs of England. You see her anxieties about providing you with the sons you so desperately crave, a mother's worry for her lineage intertwined with a queen's duty. She carries the weight of two kingdoms on her slender shoulders, always striving, always hoping. You feel Catherine's heel softly press against the cold stone floor of Westminster Abbey, carrying with her both a political fortune and the fragile heart of a young woman stepping into a strange land. Hope and anxiety, like two serpents intertwined in her chest, coil and writhe. Will a true future await her here? The early years of your reign are a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of youthful exuberance and boundless promise. You feel the atmosphere of the court, a place of constant celebration and fierce competition. The halls of Greenwich and Westminster echo with laughter, the clinking of goblets, and the exhilarating thunder of jousting matches. You, a living embodiment of Renaissance kingship, revel in your image as a warrior, a scholar, and a patron of the arts. You see yourself radiant and confident, presiding over banquets where the tables groan under the weight of exotic dishes, and knights clash in a glorious display of chivalry. It is a time of unbridled optimism, a golden dawn for England. You feel the hurried bustle and lively commotion of the court. Trumpets blare, crowds cheer at jousting tournaments, and the rustle of silk fills the air at late-night balls. The scent of wine, the perfume, and exhilaration spread everywhere. You, with your robust physique and beaming smile, are the center of all attention, a sun god in your own world. You look at yourself, a young king basking in the glow of his own glory.
Then, amidst this glittering world, you feel a gentle happiness blossom as a new life stirs within Catherine. It's a tiny candle lit in the encroaching darkness of the court. You feel the delicate flutter, utter quiet prayers, and a silent anticipation fills your every waking moment. But even as this happiness blooms, a faint shadow of anxiety lingers. Will this be the son the king, the kingdom so desperately needs? This fragile life holds the key to the future, yet it also carries an immense, unspoken burden. You lay your hand on Catherine's belly, feeling the tiny pulse of a new life, a fragile beat resonating in the vast silence of the court. Happiness washes over you like a warm breeze, but the anxiety of whether this will be the male heir the dynasty craves weighs like a heavy stone. Despite the joys and anxieties of impending fatherhood, you witness Catherine's indomitable spirit shine through. When you embark on a campaign in France, leaving her behind as regent, you observe her unwavering resolve. She doesn't merely hold the fort, she commands it. You hear the clamor of war drums, the shouts of soldiers, and the pervasive anxiety when news of the Scottish attack reaches the court. You see Catherine, unshaken, like a steel monument amidst a brewing storm. She is not merely a queen who waits, she is a general. You can visualize her with a resolute expression, directly commanding troops, writing letters to you, displaying unyielding firmness and courage. She even sends the blood-soaked banner of the Scottish king from Flodden Field to you as proof of victory, a blinding truth amidst the whispers behind your back. When you return, you witness yourself embracing Catherine tightly, pride shimmering in your eyes. Your voice full of reverence, you tell her, "You are my queen, my hero." A rare moment of peace, a deep connection, before the shadows of the future begin to creep in. As you reflect on these vibrant early years, you sense a complex duality within yourself. You feel deep pride in Catherine, her intellect, her unwavering devotion, and her strength. She is, for now, your beloved wife and formidable partner. Yet beneath this affection, you perceive the faint but persistent stirrings of a darker force, the unyielding obsession with a male heir. It is a tiny seed planted deep within your psyche, destined to grow into a monstrous tree that will overshadow all joy, all loyalty, and ultimately consume your very soul. You sense the future, a faint, chilling whisper of the immense and tragic journey that awaits you and your kingdom. Though temporary victories and joys fill the air, you still sense a quiet anxiety, like an undercurrent beneath thin ice. The echoes from courtiers, from prophecies, from within yourself, all speak of a male heir, strong enough to secure the dynasty's stability. It is a small seed sown in the fertile ground of power and insecurity, slowly germinating and striving to break through. Only the ancient walls of Greenwich Palace know the future, the whispers that have already begun to sow discord even before anyone fully realizes it. The celebratory trumpets of Greenwich Palace had barely faded when the bitter truth settled over you, heavy as a shroud. A new life had emerged, a soft cry echoing through the chambers, but it was not the sound you craved. You felt an initial surge of paternal affection, a fleeting warmth for the tiny bundle presented to you, your daughter, Mary. But like a poisoned chalice, joy quickly gave way to a chilling draught of disappointment. A girl, another girl. The hopes you had poured into this pregnancy, the very future of England, seemed to curdle in your stomach. This was not the son, the undeniable heir you so desperately needed. This was not the end of your agonizing quest, but merely another frustrating chapter in a story that was rapidly spiraling into an unforeseen darkness. The grand halls of your palace, once echoing with unbridled revelry, now felt like gilded cages. Each peal of laughter from your courtiers, each clinking of a goblet, seemed to mock the silent, burgeoning fear within your heart. The obsession for a male heir began its insidious crawl, a venomous serpent coiling tighter and tighter around your very soul. You found yourself pacing late into the night, the weight of a secure succession pressing down on you with the force of 1,000 anvils. Often you'd find your hand unconsciously resting on your own belly, where a lineage should have been growing, or at night you'd stare fixedly at your father's portrait, seeking a silent answer. Every conversation, every decision, every prayer became filtered through this single, burning desire. It was a hunger that gnawed at your insides, consuming all joy, leaving only a hollow ache. The future of the Tudor dynasty, so precariously balanced, depended entirely on you, and yet the sons you needed remained a cruel, elusive phantom. Could it be that God Himself was denying you? This gnawing anxiety drove you to seek answers, or perhaps justifications. You began to pore over ancient texts, theological treatises, and papal decrees, searching for any scrap of evidence, any loophole that might explain your predicament. Your marriage to Catherine, so long accepted, so long blessed by Rome, suddenly seemed suspect. A seed of doubt, planted by your own desperate yearning, began to sprout into a thorny bush of theological argument. Could it be that your union with your brother's widow was in fact incestuous in the eyes of God? The words of Leviticus, once distant verses, now seemed to leap from the page, condemning your very bed. If a man shall take his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. They shall be childless. Childless. The word echoed in your mind, a chilling prophecy, despite the living daughters Catherine had borne you. Your conscience, or was it your ambition, began to twist and contort the sacred laws to fit your desperate need. You sought scholarly opinions not for truth, but for validation, for any voice that would confirm your growing conviction that this marriage was cursed, an affront to divine order. Then, amidst the familiar tapestry of your court, a new thread appeared, shimmering with an unexpected brilliance. You saw her, Anne Boleyn, and the very air in the chamber seemed to crackle with an unfamiliar energy. She was unlike any woman you had encountered, not with the demure piety of Catherine, nor the quiet elegance of other ladies. Her eyes, dark and piercing, held an intelligence that challenged, a wit that danced on the edge of boldness. Her presence was a sudden, exhilarating gust of wind in the stagnant air of court formality. She moved with an effortless grace, her French fashions setting her apart, her laughter ringing with a captivating audacity. The subtle musk of her perfume, unlike anything else in the palace, would drift past you, stirring an unnamed curiosity. Her clear, free laughter echoed, cutting through the calculated whispers, like a musical invitation to a forbidden dance. You found yourself drawn to her like a moth to a flame, a fascination unlike any you had known. Initially, you saw her as a fresh diversion, a delightful challenge, a potential paramour much like others you had pursued in the past. You showered her with gifts, whispered sweet nothings in her ear, offered her all the trappings of a king's affection, save than the crown itself. She was a beautiful game, a new hunt to pursue in the endless forests of courtly love. But Anne was no ordinary quarry. She listened, she laughed, she engaged you in debates about theology and poetry, yet she maintained an elusive distance. You had grown accustomed to women eager to yield to your desires, to bask in the warmth of your king's favor. This was different. This was a dance where she set the pace, her steps as unpredictable as they were alluring. A surprising and exhilarating challenge, you felt, when Anne began to consistently refuse your advances, to deny you the easy conquest you were accustomed to. She would not be your mistress. Her terms were clear, unwavering, whispered with a quiet intensity that pierced through your royal arrogance. Only as your wife would she yield. Her defiance was a spark that ignited a wildfire in your very soul. This was unprecedented. No woman had ever dared to make such demands of you, a king. And yet this refusal, this almost insolent challenge to your absolute authority, only intensified your desire, transforming mere infatuation into a consuming fixation. She wasn't just beautiful, she was a fortress, and you, the king, had to possess her completely, to prove that nothing and no one could deny you what you craved. As your fascination with Anne deepened, an undeniable chill began to permeate your relationship with Catherine. The warmth that once existed, born of shared history and enduring respect, slowly dissipated. Your eyes, once filled with admiration for her strength, now saw only the obstacle she represented, the barren earth from which no sons could spring. The polite smiles became strained, the conversations stilted, burdened by an unspoken tension that hung heavy in the air between you. The once vibrant tapestry of your marriage began to unravel, thread by painful thread. Whispers about Anne Boleyn, at first furtive and hushed, now spread like wildfire through the court. You heard them, the nervous titters, the knowing glances, the hushed condemnations of your unseemly attachment. Some condemned your blatant pursuit, others secretly admired Anne's audacious ambition. The gossip, a constant hum in the background, served only to reinforce your growing conviction that this new path, however scandalous, was the only true way forward. You felt yourself torn, a king's heart caught in a brutal tug of war. On one side, the fading echoes of affection for Catherine, the weight of nearly 20 years of marriage, the memory of her unwavering loyalty and formidable intellect. On the other, the intoxicating promise of Anne Boleyn, a chance at the male heir you so desperately needed, and the raw, undeniable passion she ignited within you. It was a battlefield within your own mind, where love and duty clashed with a terrifying, irresistible force. But the unquenchable thirst for a son, the fierce imperative to secure your dynasty, began to seize an undeniable upper hand. This wasn't just about a woman, it was about England, about your legacy, about your very soul's salvation, or so you began to tell yourself. The pressure from your nobles, their anxious glances at the frail Princess Mary, only fueled your conviction that this was not merely desire, but a divine imperative. Amid the clamor of court, you felt a chilling solitude, a whisper that no one, not even your closest confidants, could truly comprehend the brutal war raging in your mind. As the months bled into years, the idea solidified in your mind, hardening into an unshakable belief. Your marriage to Catherine was not merely unfortunate, it was a sin against God, a union cursed from its inception because she had been your brother's wife. The papal dispensation that had allowed the marriage now seemed a mere human error, an oversight that God Himself was now correcting through your inability to produce a healthy male heir. This conviction became your shield, your sword, your unassailable truth. You preached it, you debated it, you demanded its recognition. The great matter consumed your every thought, twisting your perception of faith, law, and morality. You believed you were merely acting on divine will, righting a cosmic wrong, even as your actions brought unimaginable turmoil to your kingdom and heartbreak to your queen. The decision, once a distant, agonizing thought, now became a cold, unwavering resolve. You had to free yourself from this marriage, no matter the cost. The Pope's reluctance, Catherine's unwavering defiance, the whispers of scandal, none of it mattered. Your destiny and the destiny of England demanded action, swift and absolute. You would break the chains of a union you now considered unlawful, illegitimate. You would cut through the Gordian knot of papal authority if necessary. The very notion of remaining in a marriage you believed to be cursed, to continue risking God's displeasure and the instability of your throne, became intolerable. This was not a plea, it was a king's demand, and you would stop at nothing to ensure your bloodline, your legacy, and your England endured. The stage was set, not just for a divorce, but for a revolution, a tsunami of change that would reshape your kingdom forever. The whispers were a relentless tide, rising higher with each passing day. Your bed, once a haven of royal comfort, now felt like a battleground of conscience and desire. The phantom of a male heir, so vivid in your waking dreams, became a tormenting specter in the hushed hours of night. You knew, with a certainty that chilled you to the bone, that Catherine could not give you the son England craved, the son you craved. The solution, elusive for so long, now presented itself with a chilling clarity: the annulment. But this was no mere divorce, no common separation. This was a king's sacred bond, blessed by a pope, woven into the very fabric of Europe's power. The ground beneath your feet, seemingly solid, had become a shifting bog threatening to swallow your reign whole. To whom could you entrust this monumental task, this delicate dance with divine authority and earthly power? Your gaze fell upon Cardinal Wolsey, a man whose ambition mirrored your own, whose brilliance had, for years, illuminated your court like a second sun. You placed immense faith in him, bestowing upon him the gargantuan task of persuading the Pope to grant your annulment. He was your champion, your architect of destiny, the only man you believed capable of navigating the treacherous currents of Roman politics. You trusted him with the very soul of your kingdom, and perhaps with your own. You watched him, a master craftsman of diplomacy, as he embarked on his mission, dispatching envoys, crafting intricate arguments, and engaging in a relentless, exhausting campaign to bend the will of the Holy See to your purpose. Every dispatch from Rome, every hushed meeting was a pulse of hope or despair for you, fueling the fevered expectation that consumed your waking hours. You listened intently to Wolsey's reports, his accounts of the tense, labyrinthian negotiations unfolding in Rome. He described the endless delays, the subtle evasions, the intricate web of canonical law and political maneuverings. The papal court, a viper's nest of intrigue, seemed to mock your impatient yearning. The endless procession of envoys Wolsey dispatched across Europe, carrying your meticulously crafted pleas, drifted from the haughty court of Charles V in Madrid to the Vatican's scheming chambers. Each returning letter, each weary messenger, brought another reason for delay, a new artful excuse that rang hollow in your ears. You pictured Wolsey, his face growing gaunt under the flickering candlelight, locked in intellectual combat with shrewd cardinals, desperately trying to bend the will of the Pope. Your restless footsteps echoed in your private library, each passing hour a fresh wound to your dwindling patience. You found yourself wondering, did Wolsey truly exhaust every avenue, or was he perhaps too enamored with the intricate dance of power itself? You felt the sheer complexity of the issue, a tangled knot of theological precedent, dynastic necessity, and the overwhelming influence of Charles V, Catherine's nephew, whose shadow loomed large over the papal states. Every word from Wolsey painted a picture of a dance on a tightrope, where one misstep could send your desires and England's future plummeting into the abyss. You understood the stakes, the monumental forces arrayed against you, but your resolve only hardened. This was not merely a legal battle, it was a crusade, and Wolsey was your general on the spiritual battlefield. But while Wolsey toiled in the political shadows, Catherine stood firm, a rock in the tempest. You witnessed her unwavering resolve, her unyielding dignity as she defended the sanctity and legitimacy of your marriage before all the world. Her voice, calm and resolute, echoed through the very halls of your palace, asserting the validity of her union, of Mary's birth, with an unshakable conviction that stung you deeply. She was an immovable object against your irresistible force, a constant, living rebuke to your burgeoning desires. Each time she appeared in public, her unyielding calm, her steady gaze fixed directly on you, seemed to sing a silent anthem for justice, resonating deeply with those who watched. You felt their pity for her, a hot, searing sensation, as if they were silently condemning you. You remembered that day at Blackfriars, where Catherine, a proud queen, had knelt before you, not to beg, but to declare. Her voice, though trembling with emotion, rang clear, refuting every accusation, asserting the purity and legality of your marriage. It seemed as if a wall of steel had just been erected, not by military might, but by an unshakable faith. Her uncanny composure, her gaze fixed unflinchingly on you, served as a relentless reminder of the sacred vow you were now so desperately trying to erase. The waiting became a torture, each passing day an exquisite agony. And then came the crushing news. Wolsey had failed. The Pope would not grant the annulment. You felt a profound surge of disappointment, quickly curdling into an uncontrollable fury. All your hopes, all your carefully constructed theological justifications, all the immense trust you had placed in Wolsey, shattered around you like fragile glass. A king's wrath, a force of nature, began to simmer and boil within your veins. The very air in your private chambers seemed to crackle with your indignation. How could this be? How could the Vicar of Christ deny a king, a faithful son of the Church, such a righteous request? You saw the Pope Clement VII as a spider caught in a web, entangled by forces far beyond his control. You imagined him a frail pontiff, a virtual prisoner in his own palace, the ghostly footsteps of Spanish guards still echoing after the brutal sack of Rome. Every plea from Wolsey, every urgent message must have felt like a blade held to his throat. On one side, your burgeoning fury, on the other, the destructive might of Charles V. Charles, Catherine's nephew, was not merely a powerful emperor. He was the embodiment of unyielding resolve, of familial honor, and he would never permit his aunt's marriage to be dissolved. The pontiff, a prisoner in his own palace, was merely a pawn in a much larger, bloodier Game of Thrones, with your fate and England's hanging in the balance. You understood the Pope's predicament, his impossible choice, but empathy did little to quell the raging storm in your own heart. His weakness, his inability to grant you what you so desperately needed, only fueled your growing contempt for Rome's authority. A chilling realization began to creep into your mind, like a slow poison. You felt Wolsey's increasing impotence, his desperate pleas for more time, his strained assurances that he was doing all he could. But the results spoke louder than any words. He was failing. And with that failure, a terrible suspicion began to take root. Was he truly loyal? Had his ambition, once a beacon of his brilliance, now become a shadow of deceit? The trust you had so freely given, so unconditionally placed, now began to corrode at the very core of your alliance. You saw the sweat on his brow, the fear in his eyes, and you questioned if he truly served your will or merely his own dwindling power. The man who had been your closest confidant, your political genius, now appeared vulnerable, exposed, and perhaps no longer indispensable. It was in this crucible of frustration and mounting anger that Anne Boleyn's voice became a clear, insistent beacon. You listened to her not just with your ears, but with a growing sense of desperation and validation. She urged you to action, to take matters into your own hands, to cast off the shackles of papal authority. Her words were like cool water on your burning frustration, a siren song promising ultimate liberation. "Why beg for what is rightfully yours, my king?" she would whisper, her eyes alight with a fierce intelligence. "Your power is absolute, granted by God, not by any mere mortal in Rome." She saw the truth of your situation with unblinking clarity, and her unwavering belief in your inherent authority became a potent elixir. You spent long nights in Whitehall, after the court scholars had retired, debating with Anne. Her sharp mind, keen as any seasoned theologian's, relentlessly reminded you of the divine authority God had bestowed upon a king, that no earthly power could stand above your will in your own realm. She quoted ancient texts, offered daring arguments, opening avenues you, in your desperation, had never dared to consider. Every word she spoke was like a brick building a bridge across the chasm of your doubt. You felt the subtle shift in the court's atmosphere. Those loyal to Catherine now stood on the fringes, their eyes filled with apprehension. Meanwhile, Anne Boleyn's faction, ambitious and young, grew steadily stronger, jostling for your favor. Parties still unfolded, dances continued, but beneath the glittering surface lay a deep schism, a silent war for position and power. You were at the center of the storm, and Anne was the wind that fanned its flames. She was offering you a radical path, a complete break from centuries of tradition, but one that resonated deeply with your burgeoning sense of self-importance and absolute royal prerogative. The stage was set for a dramatic, inevitable fall. You watched the gradual, agonizing disintegration of Cardinal Wolsey's power, a man who had risen higher than any commoner in England. His vast wealth, his sprawling palaces, his very life were now at your mercy. Your anger, once directed at the Pope, now turned with a terrifying intensity upon your former favorite. He was a towering oak, once sheltering, now blocking your sun, and you resolved to fell him. The charges against him, trumped up and politically motivated, were merely the instruments of his demise. You saw his desperation, his pleas for mercy, the sheer terror in his eyes as he realized the depth of your cold fury. The man who had been your other self, the architect of your foreign policy and your annulment quest, crumbled before your gaze. You pushed aside any faint whispers of compassion. This was not cruelty, you told yourself. This was necessity. He had failed, and that failure in a dynasty demanding an heir was an unpardonable sin. The man who had been your second self, who had helped you chart the course of Europe, was now a pathetic ruin. You remembered the sleepless nights spent with him, the grand plans laid out. Now all was dust, and you couldn't help but feel a profound sense of betrayal. Wolsey's downfall was not merely a political death. It was the death of a part of you, the part that had trusted too deeply in a mortal man. You weren't present when he drew his last breath on the cold road, but his final words, "If I had served God as diligently as I have served the king, he would not have given me over in my gray hairs," became a haunting whisper, a chilling warning about the fate of those who gave their all to a king. Then a strange, almost unsettling sensation washed over you. Relief. You felt a profound sense of liberation as Wolsey was finally removed, his powerful presence no longer an impediment, his failures no longer a constant reminder of your own thwarted desires. His downfall was like the lifting of a suffocating weight, allowing you to breathe freely for the first time in years. With Wolsey gone, the path forward, though uncharted and perilous, seemed clearer, more direct. Your power, once delegated, once shared with this ambitious cardinal, was now consolidated, absolute, radiating from your very person like a blinding light. You were no longer just a king. You were the master of your own destiny, unshackled from the dictates of Rome and the perceived failings of your most trusted servant. And in the silence that followed Wolsey's spectacular fall, a strange, almost unsettling idea, once a mere whisper, began to take root and bloom in your mind. You could control your own destiny. You could control your own church. The notion of bypassing the Pope entirely, of declaring your own supreme authority over all matters, spiritual and temporal, within your realm, became not just appealing, but imperative. It was a forbidden fruit, ripe for the taking, promising ultimate power and the swift resolution of your marital dilemma. No longer would you plead, no longer would you negotiate. You, the King of England, would be answerable only to God and your own conscience. This was the genesis of a transformation, not just of your marriage, but of an entire nation. The lines between your personal obsession and your royal prerogative blurred, intertwining into a singular, undeniable force that would forever alter the course of English history.
The air in the Privy Council chamber crackled, thick with unspoken fear and breathless anticipation. For too long you had been held captive by the chains of Rome, by the stubborn will of a pope held hostage by an emperor. For too long your kingdom's future and your own restless heart had hung precariously in the balance. But no more. A storm was brewing, and you, the King of England, would command its thunder. Your gaze swept across the faces of your counselors, men who had once advised caution, men who now sensed the tide had irrevocably turned. The words, once a whisper in your mind, now solidified into a declaration, heavy with the weight of destiny. You made the most audacious decision of your life, to sever the ancient bonds with Rome, to declare yourself the supreme head of the Church of England.
This was no mere act of defiance. It was an act of faith, a profound conviction blossoming in the tumultuous garden of your soul. You truly believed this was God's will, that the divine hand was guiding you to correct the historical error of a flawed papal dispensation. You were merely an instrument, a chosen vessel in a grander design to ensure the stability of your throne and the purity of your realm. The cries of childless from Leviticus still echoed in your mind, a haunting prophecy that only a legitimate male heir could silence. This break, this radical departure from centuries of tradition, was the only way to secure the succession, to place a son firmly on the throne, to finally lay the ghost of instability to rest. You felt a surge of righteous indignation, a fervent belief that you were bringing England back to a purer, more direct relationship with God, unmediated by a corrupt and politically compromised papacy.
In this pivotal moment, a new figure emerged from the shadows of your court, a man whose quiet brilliance and ruthless efficiency matched your burgeoning ambition, Thomas Cromwell. You saw in him not just a servant, but a true architect, a master strategist, capable of dismantling an old world and building a new one according to your precise design. He spoke not in platitudes, but in practicalities, charting a meticulous course through the legal, administrative, and parliamentary labyrinth that lay ahead. Cromwell became your hammer, striking swift and true, ready to shatter the chains that bound England to Rome, piece by painstaking piece. You entrusted him with the meticulous execution of this revolution, witnessing his methodical approach as he drafted statutes, manipulated parliamentary proceedings, and slowly, irrevocably reshaped the very structure of power in England. He moved with the quiet hum of a perfectly oiled machine, efficient and utterly devoted to your will. As your intentions became clear, a ripple of resistance, a discordant hum, spread through your kingdom. You felt the tremors of opposition from certain bishops, staunchly loyal to Rome, and from pockets of the old nobility, who clung to tradition like drowning men to driftwood. Whispers of heresy and sacrilege reached your ears, carried on the very wind that ruffled the banners outside your palace. Yet your resolve remained unyielding, a granite cliff against a rising tide. Their fear, their protests only served to harden your conviction, cementing your belief in the righteousness of your cause. You would brook no dissent, tolerate no defiance. England would follow you, whether by conviction or by force. The faint cries of "Long live the Pope" from distant shires were but a minor irritant, easily silenced by the thunder of your royal decree. And then there was Catherine. You watched as she was systematically stripped of her title, her queenly dignity, relegated to the status of a mere princess dowager. Yet even as her world crumbled around her, her spirit remained unbroken. You witnessed her unyielding faith, her quiet, majestic refusal to abandon her belief in the sanctity of your marriage, in the legitimacy of her daughter Mary. She was a tragic queen, but also a formidable opponent, a living monument to a past you desperately sought to erase. Her letters, filled with appeals to Rome and unwavering declarations of her rightful status, reached you like persistent, mournful echoes from a bygone era. You tried to ignore them, to dismiss them as the pleas of a deluded woman, but a part of you, deep down, recognized the sheer, indomitable strength of her conviction.
Her quiet suffering was a constant, inconvenient truth in the heart of your triumphant revolution.
With the legal framework for your new authority firmly in place, you unleashed Cromwell upon the wealth and power of the old church. You issued the chilling decree to dissolve the monasteries, those ancient bastions of piety and wealth. Their vast lands, their glittering treasures, their very existence were now absorbed into your royal coffers, filling your depleted treasury and rewarding your loyal supporters. It was a torrent of wealth flowing directly into your hands, solidifying your power and enriching your allies. You felt an almost intoxicating sense of omnipotence as the ancient stone walls crumbled, as centuries of accumulated riches were funneled into your new order. The scent of damp earth and dislodged stone hung heavy in the air, mingled with the metallic tang of newly minted coin. This was more than just about annulment. It was about absolute control, about wresting power from the ecclesiastical elite and centralizing it firmly within your royal grasp. The path to absolute authority was not without its thorns. You faced the unwavering conscience of Thomas More, a man you once admired, a scholar whose integrity shone like a beacon. You witnessed his steadfast refusal to recognize your supremacy over the Church, his silent, dignified defiance rooted in a deep, unshakable loyalty to Rome. He chose his soul over your crown. His quiet rebellion was a dagger plunged into the heart of your absolute power, a challenge you could not ignore. The decision regarding his fate was agonizing, a personal torment. He was your friend, a man of profound intellect and unwavering principle. But in this New England, a king's will was paramount. You could not allow such a glaring act of dissent to stand, for it threatened to unravel the very fabric of your new church. So with a heavy heart, but a heavier resolve, you signed the papers that sealed his grim destiny. His execution, swift and unyielding, sent a chilling message across the land. Even the most virtuous would bend or break. Then came the moment you had fought for, bled for, turned a kingdom upside down for. You felt an immense, almost overwhelming satisfaction as Anne Boleyn finally, triumphantly became your Queen of England. Her coronation, a spectacle of glittering pageantry, was not merely a celebration of your marriage. It was a brazen, defiant symbol of your victory over Rome, over tradition, over all who had stood in your way. Her crown, shining bright under the English sun, was a testament to your unyielding will, a beacon signaling the dawn of a new era. You saw her radiant smile, her proud carriage, and you believed, truly believed, that with her by your side, your dynasty was finally secure. The weight of expectation, so heavy for so long, seemed to lift, replaced by a surge of vindication. This was your reward, the culmination of your crusade, the promise of the male heir finally within your grasp. Yet, beyond the walls of your triumphant court, the whispers of the common folk wove a complex tapestry of reaction. You heard the murmurings, some voices raised in enthusiastic praise for your bold reforms, hailing you as a true defender of the faith, a liberator from foreign papal control. Others, however, spoke in hushed, fearful tones, their faces etched with confusion and apprehension over the sudden, seismic shifts in their ancient religious landscape.
Their faith, a sturdy oak rooted deeply in centuries of tradition, had been violently uprooted, leaving them adrift in an unfamiliar spiritual wilderness. They mourned the dissolution of their beloved monasteries, the familiar rhythms of the old ways. You knew you had ignited a fire that would burn for generations, a flame of both fervent devotion and bitter resentment. The echoes of discontent, though suppressed, were a constant undertone to the triumphant peals of your new church's bells. And so the deed was done. You had irrevocably created a permanent rift, a gaping chasm between England and Rome. The Church of England, born from your desire, forged in your defiance, was now a distinct entity, a new spiritual kingdom, bound to your crown, not to the Pope's tiara. This was your enduring legacy, a monument built not of stone and mortar, but of ambition, conviction, and an unyielding will. There would be no turning back. The path you had chosen, strewn with broken vows and shattered traditions, stretched out before you an irreversible journey. You had reshaped not just your own life, but the very soul of a nation, leaving a mark that would never be erased, a testament to the power of a king's conscience, or perhaps his unwavering will.
The cannons roared, a triumphant cacophony that shook the very foundations of the tower. Bells across London pealed, a joyous symphony celebrating the birth of your child, the fruit of a revolution. You stood there, your heart pounding with a mixture of elation and dread as the news reached your ears. A child, a healthy child. But as the words, "It's a girl, Your Majesty, a princess," reached you, the initial burst of joy withered into a bitter, familiar ash. Elizabeth, a precious jewel, yes, but not the diamond you had shattered a kingdom to find. The air, so recently vibrant with celebration, now seemed to press down on you, heavy with disappointment. This was not the thundering confirmation of a dynasty secured. It was a whisper of lingering doubt, a chilling echo of the past, threatening to consume your hard-won triumph. The initial delight of Elizabeth's birth was a fleeting summer breeze, quickly replaced by the chill winds of your growing desperation. The relentless, gnawing obsession for a male heir, once a mere ember, now raged within you like an unquenchable inferno. It devoured all other affections, transforming your love for Anne into a suffocating, unbearable pressure. Every morning you woke with the weight of England's future upon your chest, the ghost of your father's silent expectations hovering over your bed. Each passing day without a son felt like a betrayal, a cosmic joke played at your expense. The very air you breathed seemed to thicken with unspoken anxieties, the whispers of your court magnifying your internal torment. Was this a divine punishment for your actions? Were you truly cursed? The question echoed in your mind, a relentless, maddening drumbeat. You saw the pressure weigh heavily upon Anne as well. The joyful sparkle in her eyes, once so captivating, gradually dimmed, replaced by a strained anxiety. You witnessed her frantic efforts to conceive, her desperate prayers, her growing fear each time her hopes were dashed. She, too, was caught in the crucible of your obsession, a beautiful bird trapped in a gilded cage built by your insatiable demands. You saw the subtle lines of strain around her eyes, the way her laughter, once so free, now held a brittle edge. Every morning you felt the unspoken question in her gaze, "Have I done enough? Will I be enough?" The air between you, once thick with passion, now vibrated with a nervous tension. Each miscarriage pregnancy, each failed attempt, a nail hammered into the coffin of your shared dream. Her desperation mirrored your own, but where yours was kingly anxiety, hers was existential dread. Then, into this strained atmosphere, stepped Jane Seymour. You saw her, a quiet, gentle figure, a stark contrast to Anne's fiery intensity. Her beauty was subtle, a soft light rather than a blazing sun. Her demeanor was modest, her humility a balm to your increasingly turbulent spirit. She was a still pond after a storm, offering a tranquil reflection amid the chaos of your court. You found solace in her quiet presence, a stark counterpoint to the relentless ambition and biting wit that had come to define Anne. Her demure glances, her soft-spoken words offered a promise of serenity, a quiet domesticity that had been absent from your life for too long. You observed her, noting the quiet respect she commanded, the peaceful aura that seemed to cling to her like a gentle cloak. As Anne's failures mounted and Jane's quiet appeal grew, a chilling realization began to dawn on you. The pattern, unsettlingly familiar, was repeating itself. You found yourself unconsciously seeking reasons to justify Anne's removal, just as you had done with Catherine before her. The same insidious logic, the same desperate need for a male heir, now began to corrode your affection for Anne, twisting love into an instrument of necessity. Your mind, a relentless engine of self-preservation, began to construct a narrative of her failings, her perceived flaws, transforming mere disappointments into grand betrayals. Was this the curse of your ambition, to discard those who could no longer serve your singular purpose? A cold certainty settled in your heart. Anne, too, was becoming an obstacle, a stone in the path of your dynasty's relentless march. With a heavy heart, yet a chilling resolve, you tasked Thomas Cromwell, your loyal and ruthless architect of the English Reformation, to orchestrate Anne's downfall. You instructed him to gather evidence, to construct a case, to find the legal means to dismantle a queen. It was a grim necessity, a surgical amputation to save the body politic, or so you rationalized, silencing any lingering pangs of guilt. You heard the chilling reports of accusations, adultery, incest, treason. Each charge, more outrageous than the last, was a hammer blow against Anne's very existence. You knew the truth of some, suspected the fabrication of others, but in your mind the ultimate truth was that she had failed to provide the male heir. This was not about love, not about justice, it was about the survival of your throne, the security of your lineage. You felt a cold, sharp blade of conviction, believing you were doing what was necessary, what was inevitable for your kingdom.
The day of Anne's execution dawned, gray and unforgiving. You did not witness it, for a king must maintain his distance, but you felt its seismic tremors. The hush that fell over London, the collective holding of breath, the deafening silence that followed the swift slice of the blade, and then a strange, undeniable sensation, release. A suffocating weight lifted from your chest, a knot of anxiety that had tightened for years suddenly loosened. You felt a grim satisfaction, a sense of having finally removed a stubborn obstacle from your path. The fear of God's displeasure, the anxieties about your legacy, the relentless whispers about your cursed marriage, all seemed to recede, if only for a moment. You believed you had purged the infection, removed the source of your misfortunes, and secured your future. The air, though still, felt lighter, as if a great dark cloud had finally passed. The waves of public opinion were complex, a roiling sea of reactions to the swift and brutal disposal of yet another queen. You listened to the murmurs of your people, a discordant chorus of shock, fear, and a strange, almost resigned acceptance of your ruthless will. Some were genuinely appalled, their whispers painting you as a tyrant, a monster devouring his wives like a ravenous beast. Others, particularly those staunchly loyal to the new church and longing for stability, saw it as a necessary evil, a swift resolution to a scandalous affair. They might have quietly pitied Anne, but their primary loyalty lay with the crown, with the succession. You heard the hushed conversations, the fearful glances, the nervous coughs when your name was mentioned, the silence in the presence of your guards, the sudden lowering of eyes. These were their reactions, a chilling testament to the power you wielded, the absolute authority that now brooked no dissent. The scent of fear, thin and sharp, was now a constant undertone in the court. With Anne's blood barely dry on the Tower Green, you moved with a speed that shocked even your most jaded courtiers. The future could not wait. The dynasty demanded its true heir. You immediately sought the hand of Jane Seymour, rushing into a new marriage with a fervent, almost desperate hope. She was a blank canvas upon which you desperately hoped to paint the portrait of your longed-for son, the undisputed heir to the throne. This union was not merely a strategic alliance, it was a desperate gamble, a fervent prayer that this time God would finally smile upon you, that this gentle, demure woman would bring forth the male child you had sacrificed so much to obtain. The very air around you thrummed with renewed anticipation, a palpable excitement that swept through the court. You clung to this fresh hope like a drowning man to a life raft, believing that this was finally the answer, the culmination of your life's greatest quest. And as the ink dried on the marriage contract and the celebrations began anew, you felt a profound, albeit unsettling conviction. You had acted correctly. Every ruthless decision, every life shattered, every ancient tradition broken, all of it, you told yourself, was justified, necessary, for the sake of England, for the sake of your lineage, for the will of God. Yet deep within you, beneath the layers of conviction and self-justification, a hollow ache persisted, a void that no crown, no new queen, no male heir could ever truly fill. A lingering shadow of doubt, a faint whisper of what might have been, clung to your soul like the scent of old parchment. Had the pursuit of power, the hunger for a son, truly cost you more than you could ever regain? The answer, elusive and unsettling, echoed in the vast, empty chambers of your heart. The cannons roared, a triumphant cacophony that shook the very foundations of the tower. Bells across London pealed, a joyous symphony celebrating the birth of your child, the fruit of a revolution. You stood there, your heart pounding with a mixture of elation and dread as the news reached your ears. A child, a healthy child. But as the words, "It's a girl, Your Majesty, a princess," reached you, the initial burst of joy withered into a bitter, familiar ash. Elizabeth, a precious jewel, yes, but not the diamond you had shattered a kingdom to find. The air, so recently vibrant with celebration, now seemed to press down on you, heavy with disappointment. This was not the thundering confirmation of a dynasty secured. It was a whisper of lingering doubt, a chilling echo of the past, threatening to consume your hard-won triumph. The ink on the annulment of your marriage to Anne Boleyn had barely dried. The ghost of her execution still lingered like a chill in the very air of the palace when you plunged headlong into a new union. Your desire for a male heir was a relentless, all-consuming fire, burning away all hesitation, all decorum. Jane Seymour, with her quiet demeanor and gentle eyes, was the fresh canvas upon which you desperately hoped to paint the masterpiece of your dynasty. Her very presence was a balm to your agitated soul, a promise of peace after years of turbulent storms. The wedding was swift, almost clandestine, a stark contrast to the lavish display of your union with Anne. Hope, fragile yet potent, bloomed within you, a silent prayer that this time God's favor would truly shine upon your efforts. You felt the eyes of the court upon you, eyes both curious and judgmental. This wedding, a hasty display of desire, seemed to defy the grief that had barely settled. You knew the whispers would spread, that you had shown disrespect to the unfortunate Anne, but their echoes were as faint as a breeze in your ear. In your desperate, almost frantic thirst for a son, all ceremonies, all prejudices seemed to become meaningless. You needed an heir immediately, and Jane was the answer. This haste was not thoughtlessness, but the expression of an iron will, uncompromising with fate. And then the news came, a whisper at first, then a joyous clamor. Jane Seymour was pregnant. You felt an immense surge of hope, a wave of profound relief washing over you, cleansing the bitter taste of past disappointments. This, you truly believed, was the sign you had yearned for, the undeniable mark of divine approval for your audacious break with Rome. God, it seemed, had finally blessed your righteous path, endorsing your convictions, confirming your destiny. Every morning you rose with a lighter heart, the weight of succession momentarily lifted. You watched Jane with an almost desperate tenderness, guarding her every step, ensuring her comfort, convinced that this precious life stirring within her was the answer to all your prayers, the ultimate validation of your ruthless choices. Yet even in this period of fervent hope, anxiety was a constant, unwelcome companion. You witnessed Jane's pregnancy unfold with a harrowing difficulty. Her delicate frame seemed to buckle under the enormous burden she carried, not just of a child, but of an entire kingdom's desperate longing. Each bout of morning sickness, each moment of weariness, was a fresh stab of fear in your heart, a grim reminder of the fragility of life and the immense stakes involved. You paced the royal chambers, your sleep haunted by grim premonitions, the shadow of past miscarriages, of Catherine's agonizing losses looming large. The quiet strength Jane displayed, her unwavering focus on delivering the future of England, was both admirable and terrifying. You felt her silent struggle, the immense pressure she bore, knowing that her body now held the key to your dynasty's survival. You observed Jane, not just her physical exhaustion, but the invisible burden pressing down on her slender shoulders. Each time you placed your hand on her belly, she would tremble slightly, as if feeling the pressure of millions of eyes fixed on the tiny life within. She never complained, never sighed, simply accepted her fate with an almost divine resignation. You wondered if she truly understood the full extent of what was at stake, or if she was simply a devout woman, trusting in God's will, without realizing she carried the destiny of a nation.
Then the agonizing hours of labor, a symphony of human effort and divine will. The cries from the birthing chamber seemed endless, stretching time into an unbearable eternity. But finally, a different sound, a strong, lusty wail. You burst into the room, your heart fit to explode, as the midwife presented him, Edward VI, a healthy, vigorous boy. A floodgate of pure, unadulterated happiness broke within you, washing away years of doubt, disappointment, and ruthless calculation. This was it, the son, the undisputed heir, the male child you had yearned for, fought for, destroyed for. You held him, tiny and perfect, a miraculous testament to your triumph, a living embodiment of England's future. The cheers that erupted from the court, the thunder of cannons proclaiming his birth, were not just sounds. They were the echoes of your own soul's profound exultation. At that moment, the entire universe seemed to pause. Your son's first cry pierced through the heavy veil of anxiety like a bolt of lightning striking deep into your soul. The scent of blood, sweat, and the sweet, delicate fragrance of a new life all merged into a symphony of triumph. You reached out, cradling the tiny warmth of Edward, feeling his soft skin and steady breath, a living testament to every sacrifice, every act of brutality you had committed. You held him tight, feeling as if every scar on your soul was being healed. No more curses, no more doubts, only this absolute confirmation, a healthy male heir finally in your arms. Your tears flowed freely, not from sorrow, but from a joy so immense, so overwhelming, that you didn't know what to do with it. But the intoxicating euphoria of Edward's birth was tragically short-lived. A shadow, cold and insidious, began to creep into your joy. You felt a growing unease as Jane, who had given you everything, began to weaken. Her strength, once so resolute, now seemed to ebb away like a receding tide. Fear, raw and visceral, seized you, the terrifying realization that the woman who had delivered your salvation might herself be slipping through your fingers. You hovered by her bedside, helpless, watching her strength wane with each shallow breath. The scent of sickness, of medicines, now mingled with the sweet scent of new life, creating a cruel paradox. The queen who had fulfilled your deepest desire was now fighting for her own life, a battle you, with all your kingly power, could not influence. You, the king who could bring down empires, whose will could become law, were now merely a mortal, powerless before the reaper's scythe. Her faint breath was a harsh indictment of all the power you proudly wielded. Was this God's way of reminding you of your limits, of the fleeting nature of all earthly ambition? The unthinkable happened. The woman who had given you the world, the one who had finally quieted the agonizing cry for a son, was gone. You experienced a profound, wrenching grief as Jane Seymour succumbed to childbed fever, slipping away just days after Edward's birth.
Her death was a cruel irony, a devastating blow that struck at the very heart of your hard-won happiness, leaving a gaping wound in your soul. She was the only queen who had given you what you truly desired, the only one you had not divorced or sent to the block. Her passing felt like a divine punishment, a cruel exchange for the blessing of a son. The jubilation of Edward's birth curdled into a bitter sorrow, a stark reminder of life's fragile balance. You walked through the silent palace, a king stripped bare by personal loss, the weight of your crown feeling heavier than ever before. In a rare display of genuine reverence, you ordered Jane to be laid to rest at Windsor Castle, a place of honor usually reserved for kings and queens who had reigned for decades. This was no mere formality. It was a deeply personal testament to your profound respect and affection for her, the one wife who had fulfilled her ultimate duty. Her tomb, a quiet sanctuary, became a poignant symbol of the brief, perfect hope she had brought into your tumultuous life. You visited it often, finding a somber solace in the silent stone, a stark contrast to the tumultuous ends of your previous marriages. She was your only queen to receive such an honor, a silent acknowledgement of her unique place in your scarred heart, the one who had delivered the future and paid the ultimate price. Following Jane's death, a profound emptiness settled upon you, a deep sorrow that permeated every corner of your being. The vibrant court, once a reflection of your own restless energy, now felt muted, draped in a perpetual twilight. Her absence was a gaping void, a silence that echoed louder than any celebratory fanfare. You retreated into yourself, finding solace only in the company of your new son, the precious Edward. But even his presence, a source of immeasurable joy, could not fully dispel the cloud of melancholy that hung over you. This was a loss unlike the others. It was a true heartbreak, a personal tragedy that pierced through the armor of your royal resolve. The weight of your crown felt heavier, now burdened not just by duty, but by a profound and unfillable loneliness. The palace, once bustling with laughter and music, was now merely an empty shell. Every step you took in the vast corridors echoed with a chilling solitude. Court meetings felt meaningless, hunts held no interest. Even Edward's clear laughter couldn't lift the dark cloud shrouding your soul. You looked at these walls. They had witnessed so many joys, so many tragedies, and now they witnessed a Henry stripped of everything but his crown and in indescribable pain. This loneliness was different from the emptiness after dismissing Catherine or executing Anne. This was an open wound, a void you knew could never be filled. You looked upon Edward, a fragile infant, so small and vulnerable, yet carrying the immense weight of an entire dynasty's hope. He was a delicate flame, flickering in the vast, unpredictable winds of succession, requiring constant vigilance. His very existence, while a triumph, also brought with it a renewed burden. He was a boy, yes, but frail. What if he did not survive? What if he did not produce his own heirs? The terrifying thought, a cold serpent, began to coil within your mind. In that moment, looking at the fragile child in the cradle, you saw a chilling reflection, your own vulnerability. Jane's death, a cold mirror, reflected the hidden cracks in your armor. Who would protect you when you couldn't even protect the woman who had given you everything? This seemingly perfect solution had merely replaced one anxiety with another. The future of England still felt precarious, still depended on the fragile thread of one young life. The stark reality of your situation pressed down upon you with renewed force. Despite finally having a male heir, the brutal logic of succession demanded more. You had to find another wife, a new queen, not just to secure the lineage further, but to provide a spare heir, to ensure the continuation of your dynasty should anything befall young Edward. It was a grim, unending cycle, a royal carousel of wives, each one a hopeful gamble, each one burdened by the same singular expectation. Your personal happiness, it became painfully clear, would always be secondary to the relentless demands of the crown, to the cold, calculating needs of the realm. The lessons learned, the hearts broken, the lives ended, all seem to lead you back to the same inescapable conclusion. The king's personal desires were but mere fleeting shadows against the monumental, unyielding responsibilities of the throne.
The quiet solemnity of Jane Seymour's tomb at Windsor lingered, a stark counterpoint to the relentless drumbeat of duty. Your grief, though profound, could not overshadow the paramount need of the realm. Your son, Edward, was a precious, fragile flame, but one life was not enough to secure the Tudor dynasty. The chilling lessons of the past echoed in the silent chambers of your mind. Succession was a precarious tightrope, and you, the king, walked it alone. The ghost of your father, Henry VIII, whispered in your ear, urging prudence, demanding a secured future. The political landscape of Europe shifted like quicksand, and England, now isolated from Rome, needed allies. You needed a new queen, a new alliance to fortify your fragile position. The pressure to find a suitable consort was immense, a chafing bridle that pulled at your kingly will. The mourning period for Jane, though deeply felt, had to give way to the relentless march of statecraft. Your advisers, ever eager to solidify their own positions, presented you with a parade of eligible princesses, their portraits painted with flattering brushes, their dowries meticulously detailed. Each potential bride was a piece on a grand chessboard, to be moved with precision and cunning for the strategic advantage of England. You recognized the imperative. A strong alliance, secured through marriage, was vital in a Europe still reeling from your audacious break with Rome. This wasn't about love, not anymore. It was about power, about survival, about ensuring the longevity of the Tudor line. Once again your gaze turned to Thomas Cromwell, the architect of your revolution, the man who had so deftly dismantled the old order. You placed your trust in his political acumen, tasking him with the delicate negotiations for your next marriage. He was, you believed, a master of strategy, capable of seeing beyond mere beauty to the crucial political advantages. The target, Anne of Cleves, a princess from a powerful German duchy, a potential Protestant ally against the Catholic might of Charles V. Her portrait, painted by Cromwell,
painted a woman of noble features, an almost ethereal beauty that promised serenity and grace. You studied the painted image, convinced that Cromwell, in his shrewdness, had found the perfect balance of political expediency and personal appeal. This was his chance to prove his indispensable worth once more, to secure England's place in the shifting European balance of power.
The journey to meet her felt like an eternity, filled with a cautious optimism that quickly curdled into bitter disappointment. The moment Anne of Cleves stood before you, the stark reality hit you with the force of a battering ram. She was nothing like the flattering portrait, a cruel deception that mocked your hopes and ignited a spark of cold fury. Her face was plain, her features heavy, her demeanor stiff and awkward. There was no spark, no wit, no grace. The vibrant woman captured on canvas was a phantom, replaced by a timid stranger who spoke little English and possessed none of the alluring charm you craved. You tried to make polite conversation, to find some redeeming quality, but the effort was futile. The air between you was thick with discomfort, an undeniable chill that permeated your very bones. This was not a queen. This was a political error, a personal affront. The decision was swift, ruthless, and unavoidable. You knew with absolute certainty that you could not, would not consummate this marriage. You resolved to annul the union with Anne of Cleves, feeling a profound sense of betrayal, a simmering rage at having been so thoroughly misled. This was not just an unfortunate match, it was a grave insult to your kingly person, a deception that threatened to undermine your very authority. The thought of sharing your bed with her, of enduring a life with a woman who held no appeal, was intolerable. You felt duped, humiliated, and deeply resentful. This wasn't merely a matter of taste, it was a matter of state, of your personal dignity as monarch. The marriage, unconsummated, was a public relations disaster, and it had to be undone. With the bitter taste of disillusionment in your mouth, your focus turned inevitably to Cromwell, the architect of this disastrous union, the man who had promised a strategic alliance and delivered a personal affront, now stood exposed. You felt an insidious erosion of trust, a deep-seated suspicion that perhaps his judgment, once so keen, had become clouded by his own ambition, or worse, by negligence. The glittering edifice of your reliance on him began to crack, revealing the unstable foundations beneath. Every awkward silence with Anne, every forced smile, every diplomatic embarrassment fueled your growing resentment towards the man who had championed this match. Was this incompetence or something more sinister? The question gnawed at you, turning suspicion into cold contempt. As your displeasure with Cromwell became palpable, his enemies, lurking in the shadows of the court, emerged like vipers from their nests, their whispers sharp and poisonous. You listened to their accusations against him, a chorus of denunciations that painted him as a schemer, a heretic, a man grown too powerful for his own good. Each whispered charge, each accusation of corruption or treason resonated with your own simmering distrust, feeding the beast of your growing wrath. They exploited your personal humiliation over Anne of Cleves, weaving a tapestry of deceit that portrayed Cromwell as the ultimate culprit. He had become too influential, too indispensable, and in your court such power was a dangerous thing, a threat to your own absolute authority.
You saw the eager faces of his rivals, their eyes gleaming with anticipation, and you felt a perverse satisfaction in allowing their accusations to take root. The path was clear, albeit a painful one. With a heavy heart, yet a chilling conviction of necessity, you ordered the arrest and execution of Thomas Cromwell, your once indispensable right-hand man. It was a brutal amputation, severing a limb that had served you well, but now threatened to poison the entire body of your kingdom. You remembered his loyalty, his tireless work, his brilliant mind that had reshaped England at your command. But he had failed you in the most crucial of matters, your marriage, and, by extension, your succession. And in your court, failure, particularly one that wounded your pride and jeopardized your future, was a capital offense. His pleas for mercy, his tearful letters, were met with the cold, unyielding wall of your decision. He had soared too high, and like Icarus, his wings had melted in the fierce sun of your absolute power. As Cromwell's head fell on Tower Hill, you felt a complex cocktail of emotions. There was an undeniable sense of release, a tangible lightening of the burden that had pressed upon you since the disastrous marriage. The man who had been the architect of your religious revolution, and then the unfortunate purveyor of your marital humiliation, was gone. His removal was like lancing a painful boil, bringing immediate relief, yet leaving an open, aching wound. But beneath the initial satisfaction, a profound realization began to dawn. You had lost a truly formidable intellect, a political genius whose like you might never find again. The vast machine of government, once so smoothly run by Cromwell, now felt suddenly unwieldy, lacking his decisive hand. You were free of his perceived failures, yes, but you were also stripped of his unparalleled competence. In stark contrast to the fierce battles fought with Catherine and Anne of Boleyn, Anne of Cleves accepted the annulment with a remarkable, almost unsettling composure. You watched her as she calmly agreed to the terms, understanding her new, albeit lesser, status as the king's beloved sister. Her graceful acquiescence was a quiet miracle, a stark contrapoint to the dramatic bloody ends of your previous queens. She understood the precarious nature of her position, the immense power you wielded, and chose wisdom over defiance. There were no public protests, no appeals to Rome, no accusations of injustice. Her quiet acceptance was a balm to your agitated soul, a rare moment of peace amidst the constant turmoil of your personal life. She lived out her days quietly in England, a living testament to the sheer relief you felt at avoiding another prolonged, painful marital battle. And so the relentless cycle continued. With the annulment of your fourth marriage secured, and the memory of Jane Seymour still a poignant ache in your heart, you once again turned your gaze outward, seeking a new queen. The pursuit of a perfect lineage, of an unassailable succession, remained your guiding star, a constant, unwavering light in the tumultuous skies of your reign. You were a king who had risked all for a son, and though you had him, the need for further security, for more heirs, for a stable dynasty, remained an unquenchable thirst. The chessboard of power lay before you, pieces ready to be moved, alliances to be forged. Your quest for love, for companionship, was irrevocably intertwined with the colder, harder demands of the crown, leading you inexorably towards yet another marriage, another hope, another potential tragedy in the unending drama of your life.
The years had etched themselves onto your once powerful frame, not just in the lines around your eyes, but in the throbbing pain of your leg, the shortness of your breath, the overall weariness that clung to you like a shroud. The robust, athletic king of your youth was now a distant memory, replaced by a corpulent monarch whose very movements were an effort. The endless pursuit of an heir had drained not just your spirit, but your very life force. Your court, once a vibrant tapestry of youthful energy, now seemed to reflect your own encroaching age, heavy with the ghosts of queens past. Yet amidst this encroaching twilight, a new light dawned, a dazzling, unexpected sunrise that promised to banish the shadows. Her name was Catherine Howard, and her arrival at court was like a fresh gust of spring wind through the stagnant air of your aging life. You saw her, young and vibrant, her laughter bright, her eyes sparkling with an uninhibited joy. She was a stark, exhilarating contrast to the demure Jane, the solemn Anne of Cleves, the defiant Anne of Boleyn, and the steadfast Catherine of Aragon. She embodied the carefree spirit of youth, a seductive siren song, promising to whisk you away from the pains of your aging body and the burdens of your crown. You found yourself drawn to her with a desperate, almost pathetic intensity, clinging to her youthful exuberance as if it could somehow reverse the relentless march of time. Her very presence ignited a spark of your old self, a flicker of the passion that once defined your formidable youth. In her presence, you truly believed you had found love again, a resurrection of your own lost youth, a final, blissful chapter in your tumultuous marital history. Your heart, scarred by betrayals and disappointments, swelled with a foolish, desperate hope. You brushed aside the subtle warnings, the hushed whispers about her less than immaculate past, dismissing them as the jealous machinations of a court rife with intrigue. What did a few youthful indiscretions matter when faced with such radiant, intoxicating charm? You saw only her captivating beauty, her playful innocence, her seemingly genuine affection for you, the aging king. Your advisers, ever eager to please, echoed your sentiments, eager to see you happy, or perhaps simply unwilling to brave your wrath by speaking unwelcome truths. In your mind, she was the antidote to all your sorrows, the final piece of your personal puzzle, guaranteeing not just an heir, but a renewed spirit. The early days of your marriage to Catherine Howard were a fleeting, intoxicating dream, a brief return to the heady days of youthful romance you thought long lost. You reveled in her company, her lightness, her laughter that seemed to chase away the shadows from your soul. The palace, once a place of somber duty and political maneuverings, was filled with a vibrant, almost reckless joy, a testament to your newfound infatuation. You showered her with jewels, with lavish gifts, with the kind of boundless affection you had shown only to Anne Boleyn in the intoxicating dawn of your passion for her. You saw yourself once again as a virile, beloved monarch, not the ailing man haunted by an unforgiving leg wound and the ghosts of past failures. Her youth was a mirror, reflecting back to you an image of your own past glory, a tantalizing illusion of a life unburdened by pain and responsibility. Then the world shattered. The whispers grew louder, bolder, until they could no longer be ignored. The secrets of Catherine Howard's past, those whispers you had so casually dismissed, now erupted into a thunderous storm, revealing a history of indiscretions, of illicit liaisons, long before she became your queen. The joy, you had so desperately clung to turned to bitter ashes, replaced by a searing pain of betrayal, a humiliation that cut deeper than any physical wound. You felt utterly gutted, the foolish old man betrayed by a wanton girl. The public disgrace, the knowledge that your own court, perhaps even England itself, had been privy to these sordid details fueled a volcanic rage within you. How could she? How could she have so shamelessly paraded her tainted past into your royal bed, into your very heart? The pain of betrayal was compounded by the brutal blow to your pride. A king once again made a fool.
The humiliation was unbearable, a burning brand seared onto your very soul. You raged, a fearsome tempest unleashed upon your trembling court. The shame, the public disgrace, the undeniable fact that you, Henry, King of England, had been so thoroughly deceived by a mere girl was an affront you could not, would not accept. Your fury was a blinding inferno, consuming all reason, demanding swift and absolute retribution. The image of her, so recently adored, now twisted into a monstrous caricature of deceit and wantonness. This was not just a betrayal of your marital vows. It was a betrayal of your trust, of your kingly dignity, of the very sanctity of your throne. The ghost of Anne Boleyn's perceived infidelity, though fabricated, whispered in your ear, echoing the brutal reality of Catherine Howard's genuine transgressions. No, this would not stand. With a cold, unyielding resolve, you issued the order for Catherine Howard's arrest and execution. There would be no mercy, no protracted legal battles like those with Catherine of Aragon, no public theatricality like Anne Boleyn's carefully constructed downfall. This was a swift, brutal hammer blow, a final, definitive declaration that betrayal, in any form, would be met with your uncompromising, absolute wrath. You felt a grim satisfaction in the decisiveness of your action, a chilling reaffirmation of your supreme power. This wasn't merely about punishment. It was about cleansing, about excising the infection that threatened to corrupt your lineage, your dignity, your very name. The Tower, a silent, grim guardian of royal justice, awaited its next victim, and you, the aging king, had once again proven that your tenderness, once offered, could turn to stone in an instant. The aftermath of Catherine Howard's execution was not one of triumphant relief, but of profound loneliness and bone-deep weariness. You felt the bitter taste of defeat, not just in love, but in the relentless pursuit of happiness through marriage. The well of your trust in women, once so abundant, had finally run dry, leaving behind a barren, parched landscape of cynicism. The echoes of past unions, each ending in sorrow or tragedy, resonated in the silent corners of your vast palaces. Catherine of Aragon, steadfast and wronged. Anne Boleyn, passionate and condemned. Jane Seymour, beloved but lost. Anne of Cleves, unloved and dismissed. And now Catherine Howard, the fleeting dream turned nightmare. The weight of these broken vows, these shattered lives, pressed down on you, a crushing burden that no crown could lighten. The brutal, inescapable truth stared you in the face. The relentless search for happiness, for personal fulfillment, for an unshakable legacy through marriage, was a never-ending spiral of hope and heartbreak. You had sacrificed so much.
destroyed so many, yet peace remained an elusive phantom. Each new queen, a fresh attempt at salvation, had ultimately led you back to this same desolate landscape of disappointment and loss. Your body, a failing vessel, now mirrored the weariness of your soul. The constant ache in your leg, the labored breaths, the increasing girth that made movement a painful effort, all were physical manifestations of the emotional toll your life had exacted. The great, powerful king was slowly, inevitably succumbing to the ravages of time and the weight of his own choices. In the quiet, often agonizing hours of the night, as your body ached and your mind replayed the endless carousel of queens, you found yourself asking the most profound, most unsettling question of all. Would you ever find true peace? Not the fleeting peace of triumph, not the temporary solace of a new love, but a deep, abiding quietude of spirit. Would the relentless quest for succession ever truly end? Would the ghosts of those you had loved, those you had destroyed, ever cease to haunt the vast echoing chambers of your soul? The answer, elusive and unsettling, remained a whisper in the wind, a silent condemnation in the deepening shadows of your twilight years.
The chill winds of age gnawed at your bones, a constant reminder of the relentless passage of time. The once mighty oak that was your body now creaked and groaned, burdened by the weight of years, of lavish living, and of the agonizing leg wound that refused to heal. Your palaces, once echoing with youthful laughter and triumphant fanfares, now seemed vast and empty, filled with the ghosts of queens and the quiet footsteps of watchful physicians. The insatiable hunger for a male heir, though satisfied by the fragile presence of Edward, still left an unsettling void. Your heart, battered by passion and betrayal, no longer craved the intoxicating rush of young love. Instead, a different longing emerged, for solace, for companionship, for a gentle hand to guide you through the twilight of your reign. You, the once vibrant and formidable monarch, found yourself in the autumn of your life, less a lover and more a patient, less a conqueror and more a weary traveler. Your search for a sixth wife was not driven by the same feverish desire for a male heir that had defined your earlier marriages. You sought a companion, a caregiver, a stable presence to navigate the increasing infirmities of your advancing age. The mirror reflected a man scarred by life, burdened by legacy, and yearning for a quiet harbor after a lifetime of storms. This time, the grand political alliances, the tantalizing beauty of a fresh face, held less appeal than the promise of calm, of understanding, of a shared wisdom in the face of inevitable decline. And then she arrived, Catherine Parr. Not a dazzling beauty, not a naive girl, but a woman of refined intelligence, quiet dignity, and mature grace. You saw in her a widow of quiet strength, a woman who had known loss and survived, whose eyes held both compassion and an undeniable wisdom. She was a steady flame, a comforting warmth in the encroaching chill of your later years, promising not fiery passion, but enduring companionship. She accepted your proposal not with girlish glee, but with a clear-eyed understanding of the duty involved,
a pragmatic acceptance of her role in serving the Tudor dynasty. This was a marriage of convenience, yes, but one imbued with a profound sense of mutual respect. You sensed in her a capacity for understanding, a willingness to tend not just to your body, but to the often troubled currents of your mind. From the very beginning, Catherine Parr offered you a solace you hadn't realized you so desperately craved. Her gentle presence, her unwavering patience, and her genuine care were a balm to your agitated spirit. She was a skilled diplomat of the heart, deftly navigating the minefield of your volatile moods and the complexities of your familial relationships. Crucially, she possessed a remarkable ability to bridge the fractured relationships between you and your children. You watched with a rare warmth in your heart as she fostered a quiet reconciliation between you and your daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, bringing them back into the fold of the royal family. She encouraged intellectual pursuits, fostered a sense of unity, and cultivated an atmosphere of relative peace within the palace walls. It was a healing touch, slowly stitching back together the fabric of a family torn apart by your own relentless ambitions and a string of tragic marital choices. These final years, despite the encroaching physical ailments, brought a rare and unexpected sense of peace. You found an anchor in Catherine Parr, a stability you had unknowingly yearned for throughout your tumultuous reign. The relentless storm of your personal life, so long defined by desperate yearning and dramatic upheaval, finally seemed to subside into a quiet, enduring calm. The daily routines, the thoughtful conversations, and the genuine affection she showed all contributed to a profound sense of contentment you had rarely, if ever, experienced. It was a different kind of happiness, not the wild, intoxicating joy of new love, but the deep, resonant satisfaction of true companionship, of finally finding someone who understood the complexities of your spirit without seeking to change them. Though your once formidable body was steadily failing, a constant source of pain and frustration, your iron will and absolute control over your realm remained unyielding. You faced the daily indignities of old age, the increasing immobility, the festering leg wound, the growing difficulty of simply existing, yet your mind remained sharp, your grip on power unwavering. Even as your flesh betrayed you, your spirit, an iron lion, refused to yield its throne, its authority. You continued to rule with an iron fist, making crucial decisions, receiving ambassadors, and ensuring the continued stability of the church you had created. The weakness of your body seemed only to sharpen the resolve of your mind, a testament to the unyielding strength of a king who refused to relinquish his control, even in the face of his own mortality.
It was during these twilight years that Catherine Parr's quiet influence extended to matters of faith. You listened to her fervent arguments for further religious reform, her gentle but persistent encouragement towards a more Protestant doctrine. Her pleas, steeped in piety and conviction, ignited a familiar struggle within your mind, a rekindling of the theological debates that had once consumed you. On one hand, you had established the Church of England, and your own supremacy was absolute. On the other, the echoes of your Catholic upbringing, the deep-seated traditions of your youth still lingered. This internal battle, a private war between established doctrine and nascent reform,
played out within the chambers of your mind, a constant intellectual sparring match with your intelligent queen. At times, her fervent evangelicalism could spark your famous temper, but more often it opened a quiet dialogue, a reflection on the very soul of the church you had so dramatically reshaped. In these final years, as the shadows lengthened and your strength waned, you often looked back on the sprawling tapestry of your life, a life that had irrevocably altered the course of England. You saw the sweeping decisions that had torn your kingdom from Rome, the monasteries dissolved, the new doctrines established, and you saw the personal tragedies, the shattered vows, the bloody ends of those who had stood too close to the sun of your absolute will. The faces of Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, and Catherine Howard flashed before your mind's eye, each a poignant chapter in a story of power, passion, and profound loss. You considered the legacy of each, the echoes they left behind, and the indelible mark they had etched on your own soul. The path you had forged was irreversible, a testament to your power, but also to the immense personal cost of such ambition. The constant presence of your children, Edward, Mary, and Elizabeth, now grown and increasingly part of the court, was a source of profound satisfaction and lingering anxiety. You watched them, the living embodiment of your hopes and struggles, the direct continuation of your turbulent legacy. They were the fragile threads upon which the entire tapestry of the Tudor dynasty now precariously hung, each a potential triumph, each a potential tragedy. Edward, still so young and frail, was your crowning achievement, yet his delicate health was a constant source of worry. Mary, Catholic and unyielding, was a stark reminder of your past, a potential threat to your religious reforms. And Elizabeth, sharp and intelligent, possessed a spirit that mirrored your own, a powerful force yet to be fully unleashed. You had fought for them, bled for them, overturned a kingdom for them, and now their future was the last great concern weighing on your aging heart.
As the grip of illness tightened and the whisper of mortality grew louder, you began to prepare for the inevitable, for the final journey. Your thoughts turned to the future of the Tudor dynasty, to the young, still unproven hands that would soon grasp the reins of power. The weight of succession, a burden you had carried throughout your life, was now a torch, flickering uncertainly as you prepared to pass it on. You revised your will, meticulously outlining the line of succession, attempting to safeguard the peace and stability you had so desperately sought. But even in death, the questions lingered, the anxieties persisted. Would your son, Edward, survive to rule effectively? Would your religious reforms endure? Would your daughters, so different in their beliefs, find a way to govern in harmony? And in those final, quiet moments, as the shadows gathered, you were left with the ultimate, unanswered question, a profound echo that resonated through the annals of time. How would history remember you? Would you be seen as the tyrant who sacrificed wives and shattered religious unity for personal gain? Or as the visionary monarch who forged a new church, consolidated royal power, and laid the foundations for a modern England? Would your legacy be one of ruthless ambition,
or of a king driven by the profound need to secure his line and his nation. The judgment of posterity, silent and unyielding, would be your final, enduring companion. The very air in your bedchamber grew heavy, thick with the scent of medicines, damp linen, and the chilling breath of approaching death. Your once booming voice was now a raspy whisper, your powerful frame a mere shadow of its former glory, ravaged by time and disease. The world, which had for so long bent to your will, now began to recede, its vibrant colors fading into an indistinct haze. You felt the relentless grip of pain, a constant companion that had defined your final years, finally beginning to loosen its hold. The faces of your physicians, etched with worry, blurred at the edges of your vision. This was it, the final act, the last breath of a king who had reshaped a nation, forever altering the course of its history. With a shuddering gasp, the weight of the crown, of the kingdom, of a lifetime of relentless pursuit lifted from your weary shoulders. You exhaled for the last time, feeling the final spark of life dim within you, extinguishing a flame that had burned with such fierce intensity for nearly 56 years. It was the end of an era, a dramatic curtain fall on a tumultuous play you had both directed and starred in. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the hushed cries of those gathered around your deathbed. The great King Henry VIII, the architect of a new church, the devourer of queens, the insatiable seeker of an heir, was no more. Your life, a tapestry woven with threads of power, passion, and profound tragedy, had finally reached its end. From a vantage point beyond the veil of life, you witnessed the unfolding consequences of your reign, observing the legacy you had meticulously, often brutally, carved out. You saw your contributions and your calamitous errors laid bare by the unyielding judgment of time. The lens of history, once clouded by the immediate concerns of your ambition, now offered a chillingly clear perspective on the monumental changes you had wrought. You saw the triumphs, the consolidation of royal power, the assertion of England's sovereignty. But you also saw the devastating human cost, the personal tragedies that stained the annals of your reign. It was a complex tapestry, vibrant with innovation and progress, yet dark with the shadows of broken lives and ruthless ambition. The grand drama of succession, for which you had sacrificed so much, played out before your spectral gaze. You witnessed the brief, fragile reign of your precious son, Edward VI, a young king whose delicate health mirrored his fleeting time on the throne. Then came the zealous, unyielding reign of your elder daughter, Mary I, who desperately, perhaps futilely, sought to unwind the religious reforms you had so fiercely enacted. Her reign was a fervent, bloody attempt to turn back the tide, a desperate prayer against the inevitable currents of change you had unleashed. And finally, after years of anxious waiting and desperate longing, she ascended. Elizabeth I, your last surviving child, a woman who would forge a golden age from the crucible of your tumultuous legacy. You saw their struggles, their triumphs, and the undeniable imprint of your own will upon their destinies. The Church of England, born from your defiance and forged in the fires of your personal obsession, continued to evolve, growing roots deep into the very soil of the nation. You watched it as it became an integral part of England's identity, a distinct spiritual entity forever separated from the ancient authority of Rome. It was your most enduring, most revolutionary legacy, a towering monument to your unwavering will, a silent testament to the seismic shift you had orchestrated. Though its doctrines and practices would continue to shift and redefine themselves in the centuries to come, its fundamental existence, its very independence, remained a direct consequence of your audacious actions. You saw it flourish, a vibrant testament to your vision, a living, breathing part of the England you had so profoundly reshaped. The vast, intricate burden of the legacy you left behind was most keenly felt by Elizabeth. You recognized the immense weight placed upon her slender shoulders, the intricate challenges she would face in navigating a nation still reeling from religious upheaval and dynastic instability. She was a fragile sapling planted in the fertile ground you had tilled, destined to either blossom into a mighty oak or be uprooted by the storms of her era. You saw her cunning, her intelligence, her pragmatic approach to governance, and you sensed in her a powerful echo of your own strategic brilliance, but tempered with a caution and political astuteness that you, in your youth, had often lacked. Her future, and by extension the future of England, would be indelibly shaped by the foundations you had laid, both firm and fractured.
The consolidation of royal power, the relentless centralization of authority that had been a hallmark of your reign, reverberated through the centuries, laying the unshakable groundwork for a more absolute, more formidable monarchy. You felt the profound impact of this shift, a fundamental reordering of England's political landscape. The crown, once constrained by the intricate web of feudal loyalties and papal authority, was now a shining, unchallengeable sun, casting its light over every corner of the realm. This was a legacy of strength, of control, a powerful assertion of the monarch's supreme will over all facets of national life. You had, in your relentless pursuit of personal desire, inadvertently forged a nation more unified, more capable of asserting its will on the global stage. In the quiet contemplation of eternity, you reflected on the profound personal tragedies of your queens, those women who had been swept into the maelstrom of your ambition. Catherine of Aragon, stoic and unwavering, her life broken by your relentless need for a male heir. Anne Boleyn, vibrant and ambitious, her neck laid bare for a fabricated treason that masked your changing desires. Jane Seymour, the beloved who gave you your son, only to be snatched away by the cruel hand of fate. Anne of Cleves, the political miscalculation, dismissed with a polite but chilling efficiency. And Catherine Howard, the youthful folly, her brief spark extinguished by your raging pride. Each queen a sacrifice on the altar of your throne, a testament to the brutal, unforgiving price of power and obsession. Their stories, interwoven with yours, spoke of loss, of resilience, and of the profound human cost of royal ambition. From the silent annals of time, you heard the whispers of history, a chorus of voices recounting the tales of your reign. Some spoke of your brilliance, your reforms, your role as the father of the Royal Navy. Others whispered of your tyranny, your ruthlessness, your insatiable desires. The narratives were as varied as the human hearts that shaped them, each a fragment of a complex, often contradictory truth. You heard the laments for lost lives, the celebrations of new beginnings, the endless debates over your motives and your legacy. It was a symphony of human experience, a cacophony of triumphs and sorrows, all stemming from the decisions you had made in your mortal life. The echoes of your actions, both grand and terrible, resonated through the centuries, shaping the collective memory of a nation.
And so you became more than just a king. You became a legend, a timeless archetype, a perpetual reminder of the intoxicating, corrupting, and transformative nature of absolute power. Your story transcended mere historical fact, evolving into an eternal lesson, a cautionary tale of love, obsession, and the unyielding hand of human destiny. From your dramatic break with Rome to your 6 tumultuous marriages, your life was a vivid canvas, painted with the bold strokes of ambition and the stark hues of tragedy. You were a monarch who dared to defy the established order, a man whose personal quest reshaped an entire nation, leaving behind an indelible mark on the very soul of England. Your name, Henry VIII, would forever resonate through time, a powerful echo of what a single determined ruler could accomplish for both good and ill. Our journey through time comes to an end. Thank you for joining us through the tumultuous life and reign of Henry VIII and his 6 fated queens. We hope this story has offered you profound insights into power, love, and personal tragedy. If you enjoyed this journey, please remember to like, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next captivating historical narratives, and do leave a comment below to share your thoughts.